All right. Well, hello and welcome, my dear friends. I am Kodiak Broncos. Welcome to a Sunday night edition of Denver Broncos Tonight. No Broncos football today, November 23rd, 2025 at 9:49 p.m. Mountain Standard Time because of the fact that they're on the bye week. And yeah, there were a lot of uh, football games today, and I would like to hear what you guys all think of them. But, if you're watching on the replay, make sure to hit that like button. And Mark, I'm glad you're in here because I completely ripped off your idea, and I'm going to do my own Broncos midseason grades. So, yeah, I'm happy to see you in here tonight, Mark. But either way, yeah, I ripped off your idea. So, for those of you who are watching on the replay, hopefully you just fell asleep with your TV on, and yeah. Broncos thought leader has me rolling. Yeah. I'm gonna change that at some point, but this is what I'm gonna say. And yeah, either way, for those of you who are catching the replay, I got this idea off of watching my boy Marky Sports, I think on Wednesday or Thursday. So, I am going to put my own 2 cents into all these grades that we got going on here. Therefore, I cannot wait to hear what you guys have to say. But yeah, yeah. And real quick, I'm going to pull this up. And yeah, as always, this is basically going to be a live video. I wanted to do a video on this, but I was like, whatever. If I'm going to just have this be a really, really long live stream, then I was like, whatever. I may as well just be interactive as well so I don't get like super bored during it. Um, yeah, either way, I think I'm ready to get started. Real quick, this is sponsored by Burt's Bees. I don't have any channel sponsors yet. I wish Burt's Bees would sponsor me, but yeah, I don't know. Uh, I don't have a sponsorship, but one sec. I'm gonna change the title of my video, my live stream, real quick because I don't know. I think. What do you think makes sense? I think maybe grading every Broncos player thus far. All right, grading every Broncos player in 2025 so far, even though that's kind of clickbait. Player. Okay, I am ready to get started. So, always look forward to seeing you guys in the vertical stream too. The vertical stream always brings in the interesting commenters. So, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Last thing I'm going to do, move my camera over there just a little bit, and let's get started. So, I'm going to be going with our quarterback because quarterback is the most important position in professional sports. Quarterback is the one that requires the most mental processing. It's the hardest one to get right in professional sports. So, basically, here's what I have to say about Bo Nix so far. Here's what I have to say about Bo Nix so far. Um, Once again, we are not 9-2 without him, but I don't think he's played that well. I honestly don't think he's played that well throughout this year. I've just been expecting more. To tell you the truth, I've been expecting more. I think a lot of the issues with this offense have largely 70% I would put on the quarterback. And, it's really painful because outside of the Cincinnati and outside of the uh, Dallas game and outside of the Chiefs game, for the most part, offense has been a big struggle this year. Now, obviously, we've come alive in the fourth quarter, and obviously, we've won the games that we needed to. So you cannot forego that if you are grading Bo Nix. And that was an important part of my eval. I was like, all right, this guy, he's winning us the games, but they don't have to look that painful. They don't have to look that painful. But like I said, every other game had built-in excuses. Like, the Jets, we were in London, and every international game, no matter how good one team or the other was this year, every international game was one score, and every international game was ugly. So I can excuse the Jets' performance, whatever, especially because we started out really well on the offensive side of the ball. But, yo, what's up, Oliver? Cool to see you back in here again. Yeah, I liked what you had to say about Utah on the timeline. All that stuff was pretty cool. If we don't win the Super Bowl this year, it will most likely be because Bo doesn't play well in the playoffs. I wouldn't go that far yet. Like, there's still a lot of areas. There's still a lot of time for him to correct what's gone wrong. Um, but I wouldn't make that conjecture yet. But yeah, once again, Bo Nix, the game-winning drives heavily factor into my grades because Bo Nix has delivered in all of them. And once again, it is okay to have expected more. this season from Bo Nix, but it's all about perspective. Okay. It just depends on what you look for. Okay. Are you looking for a guy who has improved since his rookie year? Because in my opinion, I don't think he has, at least to the extent that I was expecting. Like I said, if you had told me that we were 9-2 before the year began, I think I would have expected a lot more from our quarterback. But Bo Nix has the clutch gene. And honestly, that might be the most important thing here because, once he gets it all figured out, I think we're going to be really, really hard to stop on the offensive side of the ball. And I think the Chiefs game was a little glimpse on what to see because last year we played our best football on the offensive side of the ball after the mini bye. Okay, December was not as good as October and November after the mini bye, but it was still pretty good. So yeah, and the thing that's once again, it's all about perspective because you could look at Bo Nix and be like, most college starts ever. How is he still, developing? You could look at Bo Nix and be like, how does he still have all these mechanical issues after whatever? And that's fine and that's valid, but it's all about perspective. It just depends on what you value. And for me, I don't know, the game winning drives are a big thing here because it shows that even when things have not gone well on the offensive side of the ball this year, that the team is still together, that nobody's panicking. And ultimately, that's what's going to get us far in January. Mark said, I'm expecting a very consistent and efficient final 6 games from Bo. I am too. The reason I'm expecting that is because, like I said, I made a video a couple days ago and talked about how he played his best ball after the bye week. So, yeah, either way, that's big. Either way, I don't have too many thoughts about Bo. Like, I think everybody's going to grade this differently. Like, there are some people who are literally going to be like, well, the only thing that matters is winning. We have one of the best records in the NFL, A or A plus or whatever. There are some people that are just going to be like, well, throughout the games, it's been bad. And once again, mine is just a mix of both. And I think, when I was watching Mark's video on this, he also factored in all those game-winning drives. And, I'm factoring in that we have not seen much improvement in my opinion. And honestly, we've seen regression in a lot of areas. And the disheartening thing to me is that we were an explosive passing attack last year. I don't know where that's gone. But once again, I don't know. This is just fun. It just depends on what you value. And I think it will click. I think it will click. Nix is doing everything he needs to. I think this comment basically sums it up from Oliver right here. He's doing what he needs to. He's getting us the W's. He's not doing everything I had hoped, but I still believe in him, and I am happy with how he is despite not playing at his highest level, and that 100% is very true. Once again, I haven't been too happy with Nix for a lot of this year, but, we still have a lot of football left, and I think he will get it turned around. We should trade Nix. He's not talented enough to win the Super Bowl. We should trade for someone like Dak or Jackson Dart. All right, this dude's making new alternate accounts and commenting on my live streams every night, which I appreciate the engagement, but I'm not going to entertain. But if you want to argue with people in the chat, then have fun. If you guys want to go to the vertical stream and just speak your thoughts, then go right ahead because you're going to find the interesting comments over there. Okay, Dobbins was an outstanding acquisition, okay, and he's why this unit's grade is a B-, and I mean that in a positive way. He was so good, early on this year. But I think a lot of the offensive struggles, not having Adkins and then Troutman just being figured out as a blocker and Sherfield just getting relegated to the shadow realm, I felt like he kind of did drop off a little bit, but, he was really, really good. He was really crucial in a lot of those games. I know J.K. Dobbins, he did engineer the first fourth quarter comeback drive that we had against the Texans, or Giants, I should say. There are a few games where he wasn't the run game was not clicking that well, but I don't put that on him because anytime there's individual effort, he has done a real, really good job. Anytime we, what are you guys talking about? Obviously a troll. Listen, what are you talking about? I just scrolled and found your channel. You're delusional. That's funny because I see this trade Nix thing every night from a guy with a default profile picture, and it's just weird. I also think and hope that Nick's is able to take a smaller contract to keep a good O-line and defense. That's true, but quarterback contracts start at $50 million a year. Even the bridge guys like Lawrence, or I wouldn't even say bridge guys, like the guys who you think can be your franchise quarterback, like Lawrence or Love, they got huge contracts. And honestly, it's just the market right now. It remains to be seen what we actually give him, but yeah. But either way, Dobbins has been outstanding. Like I said, anytime it's individual effort, like he does so well. And I loved how he's embraced Broncos country. Now, one guy I will say, I am disappointed Harvey hasn't truly been unlocked yet. The reason I'm disappointed is because, yes, he's had his moments, especially as a pass catcher. He had his moments in the Dallas game. He had his moments against Cincinnati. But for us to be an effective team down the stretch, we are going to need more out of RJ Harvey. And I don't know how you're going to unlock him. I don't know what the solution is. I think after the mini bye, that's when rookies really start to, or after the bye, that's when rookies have really started to make their presence felt on this team the past 3 years. But yeah, I think 24-year-old second-round rookie running back who you took quite a bit above consensus, I think it's perfectly fine to have expected more. I just don't know why, but I don't think he's been that good as a pure runner right now. So yeah, I don't know, but it's not panic time on him yet, but I expected more from Harvey. Once again, I think he's been a nice player, but yeah, I don't know. Bidet is useful, but as a pure running back, he has not been that good lately. I respect how he can pass protect. I respect how he catches the ball. I respect how he can play special teams. But at the end of the day, like, he just has been dropping too many passes recently. He's done some nice things in pass protection, but he did pick up a couple of third and longs early in the year, week 2, week 3, against Indianapolis and the Chargers. So Bidet is not entirely useless or whatever, but we can definitely upgrade at RB3. His hands have not been good. I think you just need to feed Harvey, honestly. I mean, I would agree, but at the end of the day, he's just been not that good running in between the tackles this year. I don't know what it is. I don't know if the division is good. I don't know if the division is bad, but yeah, we shouldn't need to rely on a one-game wonder from a commuter school, LOL. RJ been one of our best receivers, but we need to use him to be our best running back. It was fine with JK, but now without him, we have to run the rock. Yes, I agree. I have not seen enough of Jaleel to make a correct decision, but he proved me wrong. The reason he proved me wrong was because I said he adds basically nothing to this team. I said that he was small. He was bad at catching the football. He couldn't do anything else besides just be a pure runner and make a couple dudes miss. And even then, I didn't think his missed tackle metrics were that good last year. So that kind of explains that. But he's definitely trending up. I think he definitely made the most of his opportunity last Sunday. And, if they had never blown that play dead, who knows? Who knows where things would have looked. All right, I give the wide receivers a C+. So Sutton is still our go-to guy in high-leverage situations. But if you look at through 10 games, he has not produced in his 2023 or 2024 ways. And, he's still the guy that we're going to, third and 7 game on the line. Actually, that might be Pat Bryant now. But he isn't producing the way he has in the past couple of years. And I think you could also chalk this up to the Broncos actually have some decent weapons behind him now. Last year was often inconsistent, and it was marred by, we had a lot of injuries or whatever. And not to say that hasn't been the case too, but Sutton, he hasn't really taken over games he had a really good game against the Chargers, but, it felt like at certain points over the past 2 years, he would be money and he would take over games. So, yeah. All right, brother, I got an early morning tomorrow. When do you stream next? I'm going to stream tomorrow night, but you can always catch this on the replay on my channel. So, yeah. Exactly. Sutton still makes those WTF catches, bro, but he'll let you down on those easy firsts on second down. Yeah, I agree. Actually, I haven't remembered much of that this year. I remember the easy firsts on letting him down on the easy first. He always seems to open the games with a drop or whatever, but the WTF catches, I don't think we've seen that in his game this year. That's the thing. I don't remember when he's done that, but either way, yeah, no, he hasn't produced in the way of 2022 or 3 or 2024, and that's fine. I don't want us funneling our offense through him because he's not a guy that I think we should. He still is a lower tier wide receiver 1, definitely probably the most borderline wide receiver 1 in the NFL in my opinion, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of those miraculous sideline catches to bail out our team. And part of it is because we have more options on the offensive side of the ball yet, but still. He hasn't been disappointing per se, but once again, I think if this team really wants to make a run, he'll have to step up. Troy Franklin has been an interesting experience as a wide receiver too so far because, he is the most targeted player on the team. And I can't say he's not earning those targets, but sometimes it is painful. Sometimes it feels like I'm watching Marquez Valdez-Scantling out there with how bad he is at tracking the ball, with the fact that he has bad hands sometimes. But then he'll just make a clutch play, the one against the Chiefs that ices the game. And yeah, like he has grown from last year to this year, but he is leading the team in targets. And I think you guys will not even believe is that he has as many targets as Jackson Smith and Jigba or whatever. Troy Franklin, this is not a made-up stat, but coming into this week, Troy Franklin had as many targets as Jackson Smith and Jigba today. The NFL's receiving yards leader. And yes, I know that it's not fair to compare him to one of the best wide receivers in football right now, but statistically, one has 800 more yards than the other. Once again, Franklin is not earning his targets, but he has been a really, really interesting experience at wide receiver too. It's a volatile thing, and banking on him was always going to be risky. He is a 4th-round pick for a reason. He was not like this. Wide receiver room has not had a bunch of capital invested into it, but we have drafted a bunch of guys. It's not like we've used our 1st-round pick on wideouts or anything, but I get why the team wanted to give Franklin the opportunity this upcoming year. And not to say that they were wrong for doing so, but it's been an interesting experience. That's just all I can put it. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's not so fun. First half against the Chiefs, not so fun. Second half, very fun. Once Pat Bryant gets as many or more targets than Franklin, you'll see a major upgrade. I think you're right. Because Troy Franklin legitimately might have the worst hand-eye coordination I've ever seen from an athlete. And it's crazy that he's separating at such an elite level and then he's making a tough play, and then I'm just like, what? This feels like Gabe Davis all over again. Bo also doesn't throw some BS at the sideline for Sutton to figure out how to catch like Wilson. This is true, but Sutton was still making those pretty good plays last year, I would say. But I get what you're saying. Marvin Mims, I love the explosiveness. Unfortunately, the short and intermediate route tree hasn't developed. He just is a guy who's best as being deployed as a gadget player, and he's an elite special teamer. So he provides a lot as a member to our team. He doesn't provide a whole lot as an actual receiver. Pat Bryant, great rookie year so far, and he always makes the play when it's come to him. I think somebody tweeted it out, Zach Bye. I think he said that he is one of the highest floor rookie wide receivers he's ever seen. That's pretty incredible for a guy that they took very far above consensus according to mocks because, Sean Payton, he has great hands. He is able to get open. He's much faster than his 4.6 time, and he blocks his tail off, or at least he has the propensity and the effort to block his tail off. And that's completely fine. That's what you want from your wide receiver. And yeah, overall, Mark, you were right. Sean Payton did fall in love with this guy, and I can't say he's wrong. Also, one more thing I forgot to say about Mims, he's very important to this team. I think part of his grade individually, even though I didn't grade any of these players individually, I think he's pretty important to this team. You saw him flip the field in the special teams battle with 2 big returns last week. But yeah, Pat Bryant is always making the play. Trent Sherfield, even though he's not on the team anymore, I felt like I kind of had to include him in here. He had the worst season on the team, in my opinion. Anytime he was on the field, it felt like he couldn't block, felt like he couldn't catch passes, felt like he was just doing. I don't even remember him catching a single ball this year. I'm being so for real. Let me check. Did Trent Sherfield catch a single ball this year? I remember him getting 1 target against Philly, and that was it. Okay, he caught 1 target against the Eagles for 15 yards. Other than that, this is game log from this year, and I was wondering why I hadn't thought of him being on the field, and it's because he hasn't really been on the field. And I wish they had snap count on this. But yeah, Trent Sherfield, in my opinion, had the worst season on the team, but so it's no wonder that he got cut. Tight ends, I'm giving them a C+, and the reason I'm giving them a C+ is because the fact that the unit has played above my expectations is really saying something. Not Ingram. Ingram has not surpassed my expectations. He's fallen well short of them. But I think Adkins is one of those guys that I think has surpassed my expectations. Troutman has, the past 3 weeks, really surpassed my expectations too. But yeah, I didn't realize how important Adkins was to this team. But either way, Ingram has been disappointing. There's no denying that, especially because Sean Payton made going out and getting Evan Ingram a big deal. I don't know why he made going out and getting Evan Ingram such a big deal, and Evan Ingram, he was one of those guys that, when we signed him, I was like, I was kind of lukewarm on it, but still feeling good because I was like, all right, he'll be an upgrade from what we've had. And, Yeah, Mark puts it well. Sherfield played 32 to 43% of plays for the first 3 weeks, then it declined every week since. Yeah, that feels about right. Um, but what I was saying about Evan Ingram is, he got hurt week 2. But even in week 1, when he was healthy, I was just like, where is this guy? Like, what has this guy been doing? Sherfield's blocking was underwhelming. That's what everyone kept talking about. Yeah, like straight up. There's a reason I think I named Sherfield as having the worst season on the team this year. But Evan Ingram, once again, he has been disappointing so far, but the chemistry with Bo Nix, it's starting to be there. I think we saw the first glimpses of it against Philly. And Evan Ingram has made a couple like savvy veteran plays. Like he knows where the end zone or diving from the end zone against Philly really comes to mind. That 3rd and 11 where he picked up against Dallas, where he just straight up stopped, um, behind the Dallas defender who's playing like 8 yards off, and Ingram was playing like 3 yards deeper, so we were able to pick up the first down. Yeah. But when we signed Evan Ingram, I was like, all right, we have a chain mover. We don't have a downfield vertical threat, but I was fine with getting a chain mover. But even then, it looks like that hasn't really come to fruition. It feels like he hasn't had a lot of yak ability. And, Sean Payton doesn't like tight ends that don't block, so I don't know why we signed him to begin with. But, I think it's starting to ramp up at least a little bit. Like he got targeted a lot against the Chiefs. And I think he's one of those guys that after the bye, you're going to see him really unlocked as well. Adam Troutman, straight up, just bad the first 7 weeks. But he's been awesome the past 3. He's been one of those guys that, he's not going anywhere, whether you like it or not. And, coming into this year, I was like, Adam Troutman has his place in the NFL. I wasn't one of those guys that was like, cut Adam Troutman, because that never made sense to me. I think Adam Troutman is a useful player, but he's a tight end 3, and he should not be getting the most snaps in your tight end room. Like, I'm just being so straight up. So, this offseason, you need to improve upon inline tight end. Like, they needed to this past offseason, but they didn't do it. And, it's one of those things that, all right, we're going into the draft. We got to make sure we do this. Like, we got to make sure the actual bad areas of the team are filled out this time. And I respect that they try to add linebacker, and I respect that they try to add tight end, but we still need an inline guy. Nate Atkins, man. So with everyone keeps saying root beer, Ingram doesn't have yak, but his second efforts on 3 huge plays this year say otherwise. Like, I get it. He's made some really, really big plays this year, but I'm wondering, where's the guy from the preseason? Where's the guy who turned it up 50 yards against Arizona? That's the guy that we've been missing. Like, flat out, yes, he's made a couple nice plays, but we haven't seen him be Evan Ingram yet. That's what I'm trying to say. But, I hope he turns it around, and I hope we get to see more of this, because that'd be absolutely fantastic. Either way, finally talking about Nate Atkins. So I don't know why, but it feels like the offense is so much worse when he's out of the lineup. Like, not to say we're good when he's in the lineup, but it feels like everything when he's out is just pulling teeth. Okay. And that's what makes me realize how important he is to this offense. Okay. I at least can think back to things that Troutman and Atkins have both done for us. But Nate Atkins is a very, very important blocker on this team. And honestly, somebody I did not put on here that maybe should have, except maybe you'd count him as a fullback, is Adam Prentice. I don't know. He's been fine, but like, I don't know. He just came in for what you brought him in to do. I like a couple of the reps, but he hasn't like wowed me and done things that I didn't think he could do. Either way, Nate Atkins, when he's out of the lineup, it just feels like everything is just so convoluted. Feels like everything is just so painful. And for that reason, I'm willing to chalk him up to being a pretty important role guy. Like, I don't think he should have as many targets as he's been getting when he's been healthy. Same with Adam Troutman. But, I still think 1 target a game is probably a little too many for these guys. But yeah, overall, I think Nate Atkins is a very important piece of this team. Ingram kind of seems like he's not putting in effort because Bo doesn't throw to him as much as they want. He's looking to get the ball so much because that's what Lawrence did. See, that's the thing. The problem I have with that is if that's true and that's truly what's happening, you're not supposed to be funneling your offense through a tight end with an average depth of target with 5. Evan Ingram, when he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, was being targeted at an average depth of target 5 yards downfield. I'm not making that up. That's like a running back. Okay. So, we can't funnel our offense that way. That's just not good football. It just straight up isn't. But yeah, talking about Lucas Kroll. So Nate Atkins is pretty important. Sorry, I got so sidetracked talking about him. But Lucas Kroll, I will be very disappointed if he's still on this team next year. He adds nothing to this team. He hasn't done anything that's made me think otherwise. At least with Troutman and Adkins and Ingram, I can think of things that they've done for this team. I can think about big plays that they've made either this year or last. And I think that they all have their place in the NFL, whether we like it or not with Troutman. Troutman, I think, is a great tight end 3, but once again, he should not be leading the room in snap share. But yeah, Lucas Kroll, he adds nothing to this team. Like, we need an upgrade next year. We need an upgrade in free agency. We need an upgrade or the draft. I'd be completely fine with either. But the reality of the situation is Lucas Kroll probably should not have made this team this year. The fact that he made this team says more about the quality of our tight ends more than it does about him actually being good at football, which is not the case. So yeah, I will be disappointed if Kroll's still on this team next year. Offensive line, I'm giving this an A-. All right. I know a lot of people say that, well, the offensive line is not actually that good at pass protection. The offensive line benefits from having Bo Nix, who senses pressure really well. The offensive line benefits from, a screen-heavy game plan. And the counter argument I will say to that is if you look at any Broncos metric in pure dropback situations, so not talking about screens, not talking about, play action even, I don't think. The Broncos are number 1 in pretty much every area. That includes pass block win rate, which fine. If you don't like pass block win rate, or you don't like the win rates, which I mean, honestly, I don't as well. They grade out very well in pretty much everything else. And that says more to me about the quality of the offensive line. Now, I still don't think the run blocking is like top tier, but I think it's good enough. I wouldn't even say good enough. I think it's been good. And the penalties have been absolutely absurd this year. But at the end of the day, like, I think a lot of the penalties have been due to the tight ends that are, brought into block as well. And the reality of the situation is you have 4 out of 5 guys who are playing at a great level, and that includes your third string left guard. Okay, the only guy who's not playing at a great level is Wattenberg, and even he has made a lot of strides, even with the bad snaps. Yo, what's up, Roan? Yeah. I really like Adkins. I agree that Adkins is the glue guy, which is funny because outside of football, people say he's not a good guy. I don't think he's necessarily a good guy, but one of my really good friends had a really bad experience with him coming into his store. Yeah, but either way, so we have 4 out of 5 guys who are playing at a great level, and that includes your third string left guard. Your third string left guard, Alex Palczewski, in my opinion, has filled in very, very well. Second year in a row that he's filled in for a starter on this offensive line and done very, very well. Okay, and Palczewski has his place on this team, but as a 6th offensive lineman, he's a phenomenal backup, but I think that's where he's best. Okay, he's been really, really good. But I don't think, because of the fact that you can play him everywhere, I don't think you forego adding an offensive lineman in the draft or paying one in free agency if you decide to move on from Ben Powers. Once again, Wattenberg, I said, was much improved from weeks 1 through 4, but jury's still out if he's a long-term solution, okay? Felt like early on in the season we were seeing him get beat a lot and just not give effort on some real run plays, but he's picked it up. He, in my opinion, has picked it up really high. Really well. The snaps still need to be figured out, but yeah, Root Beer Adkins strikes again, indeed. Garrett Bowles, I'm straight up best player on the team this year, like no joke. Very strong case for protector of the year. I think it ultimately goes to Penei Sewell because Sewell is, he has the name recognition and whatever, but Garrett Bowles is a very strong case for it. And in my opinion, I don't even think he's allowed some pressures, but I don't think he's allowed a single sack yet. And a lot of people say, well, Bo does a really good job at avoiding sacks and avoiding pressure, and I guess. But at the end of the day, in pure dropback situations, this offensive line grades out as good as anyone. Number 1 in the league at pretty much every position except for center. So, yeah, that's why I give him an A-. Like, once again, you can talk about the penalties. You can do whatever. How do we feel about trading for Dameon Pierce? Well, we could still sign him off the Chiefs practice squad if we really wanted him. Miners, I felt like, I had this thought about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. I felt like Quinn had not been Quinn this year, but, the random illness explains a lot, but the highs for him are really high. Like, I felt like he had a phenomenal game against the Chiefs. I felt like at certain points this year, he's done really, really well. And, you look at games like against the Jets, you look at games, I'm trying to think, there was another game, I think against the Chargers, I did not think he played that well, but most of the time he's up for the challenge. And when he is up for the challenge, you're getting an all-pro guard, like just straight up, and you're getting one of the best in football. Once again, the highs are really high, but the random illness explains a lot. So it's kind of crazy what he's been dealing with and the fact that nobody even knew it. And it just goes to show you that guys are dealing with stuff that we will never hear about. We'll never even catch wind of it, especially just being fans and not being in the building. So, yeah, that's a little interesting. But either way, McGlinchey, I'm also really happy with how he's done this year as well. The reason I'm happy with how McGlinchey has done this year is because he's not prone to a bad game, or he's not immune to a bad game. All right. I think Buffalo wildcard, he played really bad. I think week 1 against Tennessee, he did not play very well either. But ever since then, we don't have to think about right tackle. And that just proves to me that I think he's done really, really well, even against the tough assignments this year. I think Karlaftis got his, wins against the run or whatever, but pure pass protection, I think he held up very well. McGlinchey held up very well. And then against the Cowboys, pass rush, absolutely non-existent, even with Ezeraku, beating him on 1 rep. I'm trying to think, against the Raiders straight up had no pass rush against us. Even with Max Crosby, Max Crosby was still making his plays or whatever, but he had no pressure against us. And McGlinchey deserves a lot of that credit as well. Now, I don't think he had his best game against the Giants, but before McGlinchey, we were the Cleveland Browns of right tackles, straight up. I remember the days of Donald Stevenson, Menelik Watson, and just the most pathetic right tackle competitions. Ty Sombrello. All those guys were so bad. All those guys were literally so terrible. And, it's fantastic that our offensive line looks the way it does now. So I give them an A-. All right. It's halftime. And before I do that, before I show you guys and talk about the defensive side of the ball, I want to show you guys something that I worked on. I put a lot of time into it, so it would mean the world to me if you guys would check this video out. It would mean the world to me if you guys would check this video out, the one I posted about Vance Joseph. It's documentary style. It's me talking about how Vance Joseph ultimately became one of the best coordinators in football. So Joseph, if you want to, whatever, check this out. It's documentary style. I'll give you guys a little sneak peek about what it looks like. Hold on. I'm going to like my own video. Guys, never be the plan B guy. But either way, I'm taking a little break to just plug my video. And yeah, overall, I'm going to take a little sip of water too. This is just a little sneak peek of what it's about, what it's going to look like when you guys are ultimately watching this. Talks about his time in CU, talks about his time with Miami, talks about his time with Houston, San Francisco, getting fired here as a head coach, going to Arizona, kind of redeeming himself. And yeah, so ultimately, if you guys would do me a huge favor and either like or comment on it, thank you, Hydramo. I appreciate it. Pale interference, yeah. Logan, I appreciate the hell out of you, man. Especially seeing you every night. Oh, hell yeah. I watched that before I clicked on the live. That's awesome. It always makes me feel really good when guys say they like my stuff. But yeah, so I'm plugging that back to our featured program right here. If you guys have not checked that out already, after I'm done with this live, go ahead and check that out. So, water break. Make sure you all hydrate. Make sure y'all hydrate. All right. So I just spoiled my edge grade as well, but interior defensive line, we got to give this an A, man. The only thing that would make it A+ in my opinion is, I don't know, if we had an Aaron Donald level guy just wreaking havoc over and over again. But the interior defensive line, this is one of the best in the league. And the reason why it's one of the best in the league is because everyone's contributing to their role. Allen, we are not the same team without Zach Allen. We straight up just aren't. We saw what happened last year when we did not have Zach Allen against the Raiders, and our defensive line and our pass rush, ultimately, it wasn't the same unit. But in my opinion, he's what makes this whole D work. He's what's eating up the assignments so that JFM can do his thing on the one-on-one and third downs. He's the one that's, doing his assignments so that Nick Benito can come from his side and, ultimately beat the edge, because defensive line or interior offensive lines respect Zach Allen that much. Most quarterback hits in the league, I think most pressures from the interior defensive line spot in the league. And yes, you could say that a lot of that is because of volume, but he plays at a very, very high level. For whatever reason, PFF absolutely hates him. But for the guys who actually watch the films, or watch the film, Zach Allen is always disruptive. And in my opinion, this team is not what it is today without Zach Allen. So yeah, I think he's just been flat out the defensive MVP. I don't know his stats. Like, I'm not a stats guy. I genuinely can't tell you how many sacks we have. I can't tell you anything or whatever, but about any individual player stats. But just from watching the games, I can tell you that Zach Allen is, in my opinion, our most impactful piece on the defensive side of the ball. Zach Allen is my go. I'm gonna need that 99 jersey. So tough. I've actually thought about this since I've been collecting a lot of college gear lately. Like, I got this Oregon shirt from one of the stores really close to me, Rally House down there in Littleton. I kind of want to get a Zach Allen BC jersey. I feel like that'd be really tough. But either way, talking about John Franklin Myers, man, I hope we can extend him. I really, really hope we extend JFM. He's a pass rushing specialist who remains disruptive against the run. JFM also wins his one-on-ones. Like, I don't know. I just can't explain it, but it feels so good to have JFM. It feels so good to have those guys on the interior because it just makes the whole job of the defense that much easier. Even the guys like Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper, like, yes, those guys are fantastic individually, but I truly don't believe they'd be having the success they've been having without having an interior that can push the pocket. And Allen JFM can really do that. Also, DJ Jones and Awazarike play their positions so well. DJ Jones is a smart guy. He's a captain. And he honestly, what I think sets him apart on the field is his brain. I feel like he's able to recognize where the run is going even before the running back can. And that's something that makes him really, really valuable on the defensive line, in my opinion. And Awazarike, like, man, oh man. I can't believe Eni Awazarike has had the season he's had. He's straight up just our biggest offensive lineman, 6'5", 320. And not only can he give you some nice run defense, like I think that's his primary role, but man, I feel like a couple times this year he's been able to rush the passer when given the opportunity too. But yeah, if we extend JFM, what does that say about Savion Jones? Is that a wasted pick? No. And the reason I'm going to say no is because slightly above average kind of details my point here. This is where Broncos depth really stands out. Plus, trenches is never a bad idea. Like, Savion Jones isn't contributing this year, but it's not because he's bad. It's just because we have so many guys in front of him. Now, if we had nobody in front of him and he was still a game day inactive, I'd be like, all right, well, how much does he suck? But Savion Jones in limited sample has been pretty good. Even though he hasn't really shown a whole lot in the regular season, once again, I'll chalk that up to him just being, raw, not really been given the trust by the coaching staff, because ultimately he was a third-round rookie, and this coaching staff still keeps a leash on those guys and really doesn't play them in roles if they're not forced to. But yeah, so the interior defensive line has been really good. And also, I want to talk about Malcolm Roach. That's another guy that I really want us to extend, okay? This run defense, you saw it against the Colts without Malcolm Roach. You saw what the Chiefs were able to do. In my opinion, I think if we were able to have Malcolm Roach for that game, I think it turns out very differently. And yeah, that's just how I'm feeling about that. So yeah, Malcolm Roach has been really, really big for our defense. And all these guys have. The interior defensive line is one of the best in the NFL. Now, edge rushing, holy cow. Benito has ascended into one of the game's very best, and he is even better than last year. Okay, where were all those fans on Twitter that were like, Vic Beasley, we don't want him to turn into the next Vic Beasley? Where were all those fans on Twitter that were like, well, his production came at inopportune times when the game was already out of hand, either one way or the other? And I won't say that that's invalid, but the fact that you would forego paying him and you thought he was going to turn into Vic Beasley, like, what is this? We're not in hell anymore, guys. As my friend David Talks Broncos said, for the people that were actually scared about that, where were your brains at? Like, we're not in hell anymore. There's no reason to be scared of something like that happening. So, yeah. Also, Nick Benito, since he has ascended into one of the game's very best, he is so disruptive. Okay, Benito and Cooper are both number 1 and number 3, respectively, in the NFL at generating quick pressures, and that I think is really, really help this defense really go to the next level. Because if you can get pressure off the bat like that, then you are doing so much right. And it's going to be so hard for opposing offenses to play offense against you or whatever. But yeah, Cooper, he just continues to make strides, man. He's just developed into a, really quality starter, and he's just so good. He's just very, very reliable. Top 20 edge in the league, in my opinion, and he's just a complete do-it-all guy. In my opinion, what impresses me more than his ability to rush the passer is how he's able to defend the run. I think he's really, really good as a run defender, really good as an anchor. And, I thought both of these guys were Batmans, or Robins, not Batmans before the 2024 season began, but both guys broke out in a huge way. And I think both guys definitely proved me wrong. Remember, we traded back up in the third round for Savion Jones, so that's why I'm kind of disappointed he's not playing that much. I mean, that's valid, but, with our third round picks that have missed, even if Savion Jones does miss, I think it's not going to be that painful, because you think about the times where we do miss on a third round pick. I think about like Browning, okay? Nobody gives two shits that we missed on Browning right now because of Benito and Cooper. But, you think about Drew Sanders and you think about Greg Dulcich, and that's when they really start to miss. So if the cupboards were bare, I think I'd agree that if Savion Jones busted, I'd be hurt. But since they're not, I'm not really that hurt. Especially because this coaching staff doesn't deploy rookies that much. But Cooper's a dog. I picked Benito for a sack. Cooper gets it. I bet Cooper for a sack. Benito gets it. Yeah, that's so true. Isn't that funny how that works? That is how player props work. But yeah, against the Jets, I straight up don't know if we win that game without Jonathan Cooper. Jonah Ellis, he's very impactful when he's on the field this year. I think he's had a couple nice plays this year. He had a really big sack on Tennessee in week 1 to knock the Titans out of field goal range after Marvin Mims fumbled the punt. He also forced the fumble on special teams on kickoff coverage. So he's been very impactful when he's on the field this year. But unfortunately, injuries have been very unkind to him. It all started last year in the playoff game where he got like pull blocked and, the guy's face mask like just went straight up into his shoulder and he like got a shoulder fracture, whatever it was. And then this year he's had like the hamstring injuries. So, it's been untimely. It's been really unfortunate for General Ellis, but I get it. The hype should be off the rails. Hopefully for the rest of the season and next year, hopefully hopefully health is more kind to him. Did you see the Browns got 10 sacks today? They now have 42 sacks. I'm getting kind of worried they're going to steal the record from us. Well, they're not going to play Geno Smith every week. But yes, I did see that. And also, the Raiders have just flat out nobody who can block Myles Garrett or even come close to it. Tillman, not only can he rush the passer, but the awareness to get 2 interceptions is huge. Okay. I think Hufanga needs to take a couple lessons or two from Tillman, because Tillman has gotten 2 interceptions on 2 opportunities he's had for it. The second one against the Raiders was a really good interception because he was like cradling it in his hips and then he finally secured it against his, dick or whatever. But then he was able to make guys miss. And that's what really impressed me about Tillman was, he's just making plays. And, even if he's not rushing the passer, which, yes, he has legit pass rushing jobs. Like, even when Benito and Cooper are off the field on not third down, but first, second down, I feel equally confident in, Tillman to step up and give us 80% of the same play. So, yeah. But I give Tillman a lot of props for his coverage. And also, he looks like he's 300, but he's actually like 250. So that's crazy. But Q Robinson, this is one where you really, really saw the benefits against the Chiefs. The reason you saw the benefits was because Jonah Ellis was out that game. And what Q Robinson do? Q Robinson had an enormous sack on 3rd and 1 to get the Chiefs back, or to help them not sustain the drive that they needed to going into the second half. So, yeah. Q Robinson, when you drafted him, I was like, this is a luxury pick. But now I get why we went 5 deep at edge. He stepped up. He stepped up in a big way. And as long as he's not late running onto the field, I think, it's nowhere to go but up for him. So, yeah, I like the fact that we did go 5 deep at edge, but I think our defensive depth is set for next offseason. All right. Inside linebacker, I'm going to give this a B, but I think a lot of this is mainly weighted because of Surtain. Like, we've basically deployed these 3 guys all year long. We haven't seen a whole lot of linebackers outside of them. Like, I'm not counting Karenny Reed or Garrett Wallow in here, or Jordan Taylor or whatever that guy's name is. But, yeah, overall, Singleton, he was a guy that coming into this year I was not big on. You guys probably knew that. If you saw any of my content from July, August, September, I was like, this guy's bad. I was like, I don't know why we kept him. He is a 31, 32-year-old linebacker coming off an ACL tear, so it shouldn't have been, even in the cards for him to be a starter. But, I get why they only added 1 linebacker, inside linebacker, because I think they were banking on the health of Drew Sanders, but Drew Sanders doesn't exist. Like, until we see him again, I refuse to believe that he exists. But, yeah, in the offseason, I didn't understand why the team kept Alex Singleton, especially for the cap hit they did, but I get why they did it now. Okay, first of all, being the green dot means something. No matter how bad I think he's played, like, I think being the green dot means something, and he is a monumental culture piece. I'm talking monumental. Okay, he is one of the captains he's one of the leaders of this team. He's one of the captains of this team. And it's no surprise. Like, he bleeds orange and blue. He is such an amazing human in the community. Hi, Cobra. Great to see you here tonight. Yeah, overall, I didn't like. So Singleton has been bad in coverage this year, but he's always been that guy. Okay, when he's not asked to cover, he's been much better. And Sternad, straight up, slightly above average, said it for me. He's been an enormous revelation for this defense, and the late blooming has helped us so much. He's been huge in big games. This was his first chance to do the green dot. This was his first chance to be on the field as an every down linebacker against the Chiefs. Felt like he passed with flying colors. Like, he had an amazing sequence in the fourth quarter where I think it was the second to last Kansas City drive where we made them go 3 and out. We made them go 3 and out in both of their final drives, but the second to last one I thought was really, really impressive by Sternad. Okay. And yeah, he just continues to have huge moments in big games, and that's fantastic. He's been an enormous revelation for this defense, and I'm really proud of him because last year I felt like he was a key liability down the stretch. I felt like him and Barton were just picked on over and over again against the Bengals, against the Chargers, against the Bills. So I was like, I didn't really like, do you know McMillan's first game? I'm trying to think. My guess is week 5 week 6, 2021 against the Packers, or 2023 against the Packers. Or no, Thursday Night Football that year against the Chiefs. I'm trying to think. Either way, that was good question. I think that was me trying to test my memory. But the first game I remember him really, really showing out and me noticing him was the week 8-9 game against the Chiefs that year where we finally beat them. But Sternad has been an enormous revelation for this defense. Like, Sternad, he just does nothing except make plays, and he's a cheap guy on a cheap contract. I genuinely think he's a starter in this league somewhere next year. Could it be with us? I'm not entirely sure, but he has developed so much. He's developed every year of his career. And for a guy that was supposed to be like an exclusive special teamer, he was thrust into action last year, and I was like, all right, I get he was thrown into a tough situation. He was never supposed to be on the field this much. So I kind of gave him a lot of leeway. I gave him a lot of leeway when I graded him and when I talked about him last year, because I was just like, all right, even though you got picked on against Gesicki and against the Chargers, I was like, I forgive you, Justin Sternad. But this year, there are no holes in this game. Like, he's good as a run stopper. Feels like he's been really good in coverage too. So yeah. Here's one thing I will say. I don't think Dre Greenlaw's been Greenlaw yet, but I think he's still been good. I feel it coming. Yo, David, what's good? Doing some live grades on every Broncos unit thus far. After I talk about Greenlaw, I'll just recap all my grades for all the late joiners. So Greenlaw hasn't been. Oh, okay. In week 18 of the 2022 season, Jaquan McMillan's first game was against the Chargers and the ref. Okay, that makes sense. Good trivia question, because honestly, that kind of passed me by. I remember 2022 week 18. I remember that game was kind of a lost cause. I was like, whatever, Jaquan McMillan, another practice squad guy, but yeah. No, yeah. All right, but either way, Greenlaw, I feel like Greenlaw's still kind of not been Greenlaw yet, but he has been good. He has been a good player at inside linebacker. And that goal line stand he had against Houston, oh my God, that was insane. That was absolutely crazy. And then first game comes back against the Giants, and what does he do? Like 8 tackles on like 20 snaps, which was crazy, which is absolutely crazy. So yeah, he hasn't been the game changer yet, but I think it's coming. Like, he still doesn't look like he feels 100%. And, I think this bye comes at a really opportune time for Dre Greenlaw to heal up. But yeah, he got another another week to heal up because of the quad. But yeah, David says, I thought Lavelle Bailey was going to be so good. Dude, me too. I didn't put Wallow or Bailey or Karene Reed on here, but that's kind of how I felt about all of them. I felt like one of them would step up, but oh well. Either way, I feel like the inside linebackers, they were bad one week, and then after that, I feel like they've been rock solid. Cornerbacks, I'm giving them an A-, man. Or actually, before I talk about my cornerbacks, my cornerback, whatever, here's what I've given the Broncos so far. I'll just recap these for all the late joiners. B, your grade about Knicks is basically entirely how you feel about the fourth quarter drives and how you feel about the offense completely crapping out in the first 3 quarters in like 80% of our games thus far. I feel like it's been painful throughout the games, but I did kind of grade it in mind with, ultimately he's winning and he has the clutch gene and you got to hope he can turn it around. B- because I think Dobbins did make this what it is. I'm disappointed with Harvey so far. I don't think Bidet's been that good either. And I think we've seen a lot or enough of Jaleel. I feel like we haven't seen enough of him, but he's definitely trending up for me. Wide receivers, Troy Franklin has been quite the experience. Sutton, I feel like, isn't the wide receiver one that we're used to and hasn't produced in 23 and 24 ways this year, but we'll see. And then Mims, love the explosiveness, not really a refined route runner, but Pat Bryant, amazing rookie year. Sherfield, bad. No wonder they cut him. Tight ends, been a little disappointed with Evan Ingram so far. Troutman, bad early on, great the past 3 weeks. Adkins, feels like we are really bad offensively without him. And then Kroll sucks. Offensive line, I gave an A-, and this is mainly due to their work in pass blocking, like pure protection. I think they're fantastic. Interior defensive line, I gave an A because the role guys are so good at what they do. Zach Allen in particular. Edge, I gave an A+ because these guys have just been money all year long. Inside linebacker, I just gave a B, and you guys just listened to why I gave it a B. But tight ends as an F. McMillan was number 35 his rookie year. Yeah, that screams practice squad guy, in my opinion. But the fact that he came up and he actually made his name known, that's awesome. All right. I have the tight ends as an F. I don't blame you. Like, the craziest thing is I think the tight ends have played above my expectation. And I think they've done some useful things, like Ingram making those clutch plays against Philly or whatever. Clutch third down against the Cowboys too. But yeah, these guys have their place in the NFL. If we were just grading them individually, I'd have Kroll as an F, no doubt. Kroll is just terrible and does nothing. Greenlaw isn't there yet. He gets better every week. You are correct. You are very, very correct. Also, shout out everybody in the vertical stream. The vertical stream can often lead to some interesting comments from other people. So if you guys start arguing, then whatever. But cornerbacks, I have it as an A-. All right. Surtain, he's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's missed too many games, but he's still shutting down opposing wide receiver ones with absolute ease. All right. Patrick Surtain, he comes into these games and it's just like, all right, who's he going to erase this week? And the fact that our defense didn't skip a beat and hasn't skipped a beat without him in the past 3 games, that says a lot about the other guys who have just stepped up and really stepped into his place, because there's no way that you can replace Patrick Surtain's impact on the field. But my God, these guys are doing about as good a job as they possibly can. And Riley Moss, all right, you guys, obviously you can see the jersey in my backdrop. Don't understand why the Steelers don't throw out Darnell Washington every play, every game. We must get him in free agency. Yeah, for real. Like the inline tight end problem, that would solve the inline tight end problem. That'd be awesome. Should throw Pat some jump balls. Yeah, we really should. I really like Moss, and the penalties are horrible. Might cost us a game. What do you think starting to use KAD more than usual when PS2 comes back for the Commanders game? Honestly, I'm for it. Like anytime KAD has, been in those situations, he's done nothing but ball out. With Riley Moss, I think it's a thing that Garrett Bowles dealt with his rookie year. Like, he has developed a reputation. He's giving a really, really bad reputation, and some of it is fair. I don't think most of it is. That one against the Chiefs, the illegal contact against the Chiefs, complete horseshit. The 2 DPIs, I think, were valid calls. The one where he had Worthy right here, I think that was a valid call. The one on Hollywood, I'm just like, you can't put yourself in a position to have that called on you. The Giants game, that was absolute horseshit. The second one against the Cowboys on CD on the same red zone sequence, that was absolute horseshit. So I feel like this is a lot of what Bowles dealt with his rookie year, where it's just, singling him out. And this is blatant discrimination by the NFL. It's blatant discrimination by the league office because they don't want to see white corners succeed. All right. They want one white corner to succeed and one white corner to succeed only, and it's Cooper DeJean. And fantastic, he got that pick on Mahomes. Still probably the loudest I've ever cheered in my life when DeJean was running to the end zone. But, ultimately, if it's not going to get corrected by the league office, then Riley Moss has to correct it himself. And unfortunately, he just hasn't done a good job of that. Moss is fine except for the PI penalties. And that's the craziest thing. Like, I feel like he struggles with finishing, and I feel like he's just really struggled with penalties. And it's just been an experience. It's been a very volatile year this year for Riley Moss. And you know what? I say that as a guy that has him in my jersey in the background. Now, you have guys that are just like, well, he has played so. You have guys on Twitter that are like, Riley Moss sucks all day long. And those guys just flat out don't know ball. But you have guys that are, on the other end of the spectrum that are like, that just defend him and he can do no wrong. And it's everything to do with the league. And once again, it's a bit of both. But, I can sit here and acknowledge that the penalties are a problem, regardless of whoever's fault it is. Jaquan McMillan has absolutely balled out this year. I thought it was very funny that after the draft, everyone was like, well, we drafted Jahdae Barron because Jaquan McMillan wasn't actually that good last year. And I was like, no, 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 no. I was one of those people that was saying that is absolute horseshit. Jaquan McMillan's going to play a lot this year. And look how that turned out. Jaquan McMillan has been balling this year. Okay, there's only one game I can remember him negatively having, and it was against the Giants. Every other game, he's come up so big. Against the Bengals, against the Eagles, he came up big. I don't think we win those games, or we beat the Bengals without him, yes. But I don't think we win the Eagles game without Jaquan. Against the Chiefs, I don't think we win that game without Jaquan either, And everything has been so, so good with Jaquan McMillan this year, and he's really emerged into one of those guys that I think we need to have in here we need to have here for a long time. Okay, he was a small school guy from East Carolina, and yeah, overall, look what Akib says about Moss. He likes him. Like, I like him too, but I can still acknowledge that the penalties are a problem, regardless of whose fault it is, whether he's, being picked on or whether he's, just being, discriminated against. But yeah, I like him too. But once again, I think everybody can agree that the penalties are a problem. But either way, I feel like a lot of people said Jaquan McMillan wasn't actually that good last year. And to those people, I say up yours, because Jaquan McMillan has been so good this season, and he's balled out, and he's going to get an extension. Okay, he's a restricted free agent, and he is a big piece of our secondary. You're going to see Jahdae come in. If something happens to Jaquan, you're going to see Jahdae come in, and that's fantastic and all. But Jaquan McMillan is a straight up demon. He's a really good tackler for his size. He is always scrappy, and even if he gets beat like he did when Tyquan Thornton pushed off him and probably should have been flagged for OPI, which, I mean, looking back on it, I don't hate that non-call, but because they let Franklin do the same thing on the final drive of the game, so at least they were consistent. But Jaquan McMillan will always come back and make the play. He just always will. It's the player he's always been. Last year against Cleveland, I felt like he struggled for a lot of the game, and then he comes back and has the pick six. All right, Chris Abrams-Drain, he plays outstanding whenever he's called upon. Okay, I think about last year when he got his first opportunity when Riley went down, or when we threw Levi Wallace out of the game, and we were just like, all right. And then Chris Abrams-Drain was a big reason why I think we were able to clamp down Cleveland and why that pick six ultimately happened. And then after that, oh my God, that pick he had on Herbert, absolutely insane. And in training camp this year, it felt like it was more of the same. It felt like it was more of like, all right, how are we going to keep this guy off the field? Because he keeps winning one-on-ones and having an amazing day. And yeah, that's just how I felt about Chris Abrams-Drain. He plays so amazing whenever he's called upon. I felt like against the Chiefs, he had a really good day. Against the Chiefs, he had an awesome game because Rashee Rice, they tested Chris Abrams-Drain once that I saw. And yeah, didn't go very well. He knocked the ball out of Rashee Rice's hands on contested catch situations. And Rashee's like 6'2". Rashee's not a small guy. Chris Abrams-Drain is 5'10". But yeah, I think he got picked on against the Texans early on, but he really settled in after that game. So he plays outstanding whenever he's called upon. So I think that should translate into more like regular playing time. Barron, he's coming into his role very rapidly. I can't wait to see how his game evolves because, Vance Joseph said something interesting during that interview. Vance Joseph, oh man, I want CJ Stroud to get back out there, and I feel bad that it happened, but that was funny. But Barron has came into his role very rapidly. I can't wait to see how his game evolves, man. I can't wait to see how his game, translates. And, a lot of the times over the past 2 weeks, it feels like Vance Joseph has been putting him in more outside positions. And he said, this is where your traits have to activate. And McMillan fought his way to be a Storty, and he ain't giving up anytime soon. He's going to earn the back half of his last season and probably like a Michael Carter contract. Let me see. I don't think nickels go for that much, but, I don't think, what I mean by that is I don't think nickel cornerbacks go for that much. Yeah, this is more than fair for Jaquan McMillan. This is more than fair for Jaquan McMillan. So shout out to you for pointing that out to me. But with Jahdae Barron, we have big plans for him. And, he's one of those guys that he is made of the right stuff. He is made of the right stuff. Like, if you could almost put mental, a guy's brain into an NFL prospect and the way he carries himself, it would be Jahdae Barron. Like, holy cow, that introductory press conference. Sometimes I still watch that, and I'm just in awe at what he said. But yeah, I can't wait to see how his game evolves. I really can't wait to see how everything uh, moves, and he's really developed as a tight end eraser. Now, Kelsey did get his against him last week. Kelsey did have his passes, but for the most part, I felt whenever he was lined up on Barron, they were shifting him away from Barron. So yeah. Safeties, I'm giving these guys an A+. Okay. The reason I'm giving them an A+ is because I like that we have brought up Barron along slowly. He's only going to get better. You are correct. You are very, very correct. He is only going to get better. But Talanoa Hufanga, this upgrade from PJ Locke is why our defense went from great to elite. Okay. Talanoa Hufanga is why our defense is elite this year, in my opinion, because, we had 10 of these same starters, or I should say 9 of these same starters on our defense last year. One of the two was Talanoa Hufanga coming in for PJ Locke, and this is why our defense went from great to elite. Okay, Locke, I like him, but he was a key liability at certain points last year. And Hufanga is literally an all-pro. Like, if I'm choosing one guy on the defensive side of the ball that I think deserves an all-pro nod, I think it's Talanoa Hufanga. It's just so crazy that, there's so many teams that he could have signed with and so many teams that could have used these services of an all-pro safety. And that's fantastic. He's a very well-spoken individual. I think he's a captain as well. Yeah, he is a captain, but Hufanga is so damn good. Like, once again, the upgrade from Locke is why our defense went from great to elite. Brandon Jones, another guy that just never shows up in the box score, but then after the game, I'm just like, wait, I didn't hear Brandon Jones' name once. That just meant he did a pretty good job. And once again, it's kind of whatever from the people you expect it from. But Brandon Jones, I feel like he just always plays so well. Brandon Jones always plays so well, in my opinion. And once again, he's going to get a rich extension. He's going to get a pretty rich extension next year. But I can't wait to see what happens, what the future holds, because we have the best safety tandem in the league, in my opinion. Jail Skinner, I'm kind of grading him on a curve, or I didn't necessarily grade him individually, but here are some thoughts I have about him. I thought he was really bad on special teams straight up for most of the year. I thought the way they used him in the preseason as a gunner was really bad. Like, he was straight up terrible as a gunner in the preseason. And, in my opinion, he was a big reason why the special teams was so bad. I felt like a lot of the times he would just lose contain, but he got the block punt against the Raiders or whatever, which kind of, in my opinion, turned around his season. Because against the Chiefs, I was really happy with how he played too. And Locke, he hasn't played enough on defense, but I've liked the limited sample. Granted, Hufanga did come out for a drive against the Jets, and the Jets, that was their best drive of the game. They flat out went 50, 60 yards down the field, and they still had to settle for a field goal because that's how much of a rock fight that game was. But PJ Locke has not played enough on the defensive side of the ball for me to give him a grade. But I like him as a third safety and nothing more. Nothing more. All right, the coaching, I'm going to give this an A. Okay. I give Sean Payton, the head coach, an A-. I give him, a lot of credit for winning the close games. I give him a lot of credit for building this culture and keeping it strong. I give him a lot of credit for not having divide between the offense and the defense when it is very possible and very plausible for both of those units to be at odds with one another with how most of the year has begun. And I just really don't like how we're being penalized with a lot of things. We had so many good games last year where we were not penalized. We had 10 games, or we had 5 games this year, I should say, where we've been penalized 10 or more times. We had 0 last year. Okay. And that ultimately falls on the head coach, and it falls on the players too. Falls on the head coach for not instilling discipline. And Sean Payton, the offensive coordinator, I give him a B+. I have not been that impressed for a lot of the year. I think the play calling is fine, besides a few wacky things like the Harvey pass and the Sutton pass. I think those things have been fine, or outside of those things, I think the play calling's been fine. I think a lot of the play calling issues people have are too many screens. And I think that's an easy cop out when, Sean Payton is just doing whatever. and doing his best and trying to get guys in positions where they should be good. Because just because something's a screen doesn't mean it's intrinsically a bad play call. But here's what I will say. We're also just too dysfunctional at times on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of times we've been late getting subs in, late getting plays in. We've been struggling to sustain drives. Like the fact that Crawshaw's punted more than any other guy in the NFL this year, that's ridiculous. So I do blame Sean Payton for that. Now, granted, I blame Bo Nix for a lot of the offense's failures this year, but I also do not fault, or Sean Payton is not blameless for that, in my opinion. Vance Joseph, A+, straight up. Best coordinator in football this year. Once again, you guys should go check out my video on him if you have not already. I really hope he doesn't get hired as a head coach somewhere, because that's like worst case scenario for us, but I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. I think he is going to get hired as a head coach somewhere. And you know what? Best case scenario for him, I love the fact that he has another chance, or he's going to earn another chance in the NFL to be a head coach, because honestly, he deserves it. He deserves it more than anyone. But he just does so well. Guys love playing for him, and he's going to be a hot commodity. Mark Schlereth had already talked about Tennessee, potentially being interested in hiring his services. And Darren Rizzi, this one's up and down. Like, there's no reason the special team should be as bad as it is. But I think he deserves credit for the Lutz breakout, because honestly, the past 2 seasons, I felt like Lutz has kind of been a nothing burger. I was like, all right, he's a guy who will hit it from 50, and that's kind of it. And I didn't think Rizzi was doing that good of a job. Like, straight up, I think against the Houston Texans, we had too many issues on the special teams by the special teams unit. Or I feel like even going past that, we've had the special teams unit make noise every game this year, whether it's been good or bad. And, the good's obviously been fantastic. The good's been great. The good's been walk-off field goals, big punt returns. But there have been a couple games where we legitimately could have lost because our special teams were putting us in bad positions. We have Jim Leonard up next for defensive coordinator. That is very, very true. I'm excited to see how Leonard does if Vance Joseph does move on, but it's no guarantee that Leonard would be as good as Vance Joseph. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm excited about Leonard too. If Vance leaves, I hope it's to go to the NFC. I agree, but I don't think he's getting the Giants job, unfortunately. But yeah, the special teams coverage, the kicking coverage has left a lot to be desired. And overall, those are my grades. Those are my grades for the team this year. So I'm going to recap everything. Once again, you guys have probably heard me talk about these, extensively. So I'm just going to flip through these. And if you guys have any other thoughts, then please, please, please let me know. If you guys agree with anything, disagree with anything, then I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. But yeah, overall, that's how I'm feeling about that. I've been at this for an hour, 7 minutes, so it's time for me to full screen my face. And it's time for this to just be a much more interactive show. Once again, I am going to plug this thing that I hold on. I am going to plug. All right, thank God that thumbnail's out of here. All right, I'm gonna plug my video, my Vance Joseph video. I know I already plugged it once, but please, please, please check that out. I put so much time and effort into it. Once again, it's a documentation of his rise and fall of the Broncos, and rise and fall of his time with the Broncos, and him going from whatever. It's another documentary style video. Like, if you guys like the one that I made back in summer about Sean Payton and how he dragged us out of hell, and Greg Penner and how he dragged us out of hell, you are going to love this one. But yeah. Let's see what the chat's saying. All right, I'm going to show comments on stage now because, yeah. All right, Broncos mailbag. Let's do it. I don't know how long I'm going to go for. I feel pretty good, but I don't know. You guys came to watch me do every Broncos great or whatever, or every Broncos whatever. Do you think the Cowboys beat the Chiefs? No, I don't, unfortunately. I think it'll be a good game, but And I do think that the Cowboys, I think that the Chiefs just straight up have nobody who can guard. What's his name? Nobody who can guard Pickens. Like, I know Watson is a decent wide receiver or cornerback too, and they were really trash without him. But yeah, I think they're gonna give him a good effort. But the Cowboys' defense is just so fucking bad. It's just so bad. Do you have any major takeaways from this week of football? First of all, the Raiders fired Chip Kelly, so that's a big takeaway from this week of football. I do have a major takeaway, and it's that talking about our competition specifically in the AFC, the Colts, I'm not scared of them, straight up. Like, they should have won that game against the Chiefs, and they just straight up didn't. So that tells me that they're not ready to win big games with Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones. And yeah, overall, they had a really good chance to do something there. And yeah. Do I have any other takeaways? I mean, the Patriots may have lost Will Campbell and Jared Wilson. They're two interior offensive linemen who are rookies for a decent amount of time. Like, I think those guys it's probably not long term because we probably would have heard by now if these guys like were expected to have season-ending injuries. But I'm not scared of the Patriots if Campbell and Wilson are not active for the playoffs, because that offensive line was giving up a lot of sacks with those guys, and they've, whatever. Raiders fired Chip Kelly. Yes, they did. Well, the Cowboys beat the Eagles today. That is very true. That is very true, and I hope the Cowboys can get another big win over the Chiefs, too. That'd be absolutely fantastic for us. And Jacksonville won, which is huge. That is huge. We need Jacksonville to keep winning to knock the Chiefs down the standings. Cowboys did beat the Eagles, and once again, Pickens is just him, man. And also, I really like Brian Schottenheimer. Like, I know a lot of people were not happy when that hire was made, but yeah. Did you watch the end of the Jags game? Yeah, I did. I don't know why in such a rock fight you don't just take the points there. And then also the pass they had to Tim Patrick, I'm like, what is that? The pass they had to Tim Patrick where Tim Patrick wasn't even looking for it. Like, that falls on Tim Patrick, but you also got to coach better and be like, yo, Tim Patrick, these are the sticks. Look for the football. Chip Kelly was getting paid $6 million a year for some reason. My guess why he was getting paid $6 million a year, it was because of the talent that he had at Ohio State last year with Carnell Tate, Emeka Egbuka, what's that one guy's name? Jeremiah Smith, Trevion Henderson, and Quinshon Judkins. That's why I think he was getting paid $6 million a year. And it's funny because the Raiders, they're one of the only organizations that I've ever seen with that make moves with money in mind. Like, apparently when they traded Khalil Mack back in 2018, it's because they didn't have enough money to do so, and they didn't have enough to put in escrow for a guaranteed contract. So yeah. Kelly is trash. Yeah, he's not an NFL coach, straight up. Like, I know the offensive line is bad, but if you can't make it work with Bowers and Jetty, you're probably not an NFL coach. Like, just straight up. I like Shoddy too. Yeah, dude. Like, I love those victory speeches he has. Like, they are so electric. I love them. I love them so much. Either way, I'm kind of running out of thoughts. So, yeah, the Bears, those are pretty sick. David talks Bears coming soon because you're from Chicago. I hope you had an amazing birthday, David. I know it's November 24th now, but I hope you had an amazing birthday. The Avs and the Blackhawks gave you a heck of a rock fight for your birthday. It was 1-0. It was probably the most entertaining 1-0 game I've ever seen. But yeah, Chip Kelly really is not an NFL coach. Like, he failed in Philly. Even when I was 14 and I wasn't smart like that in football, yeah. Hilameo Makar, yeah. It was so funny because the Avs one goal came off of like just the Blackhawks goalie completely misplaying it. Who Spencer Knight had an amazing game. Spencer Knight had an amazing game regardless. But either way, can y'all hold on? This is insane. I don't think people are really going to grasp how insane this is, but I'm going to share this anyway. One regulation loss in 22 games. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think. So I'm trying to think who actually gets in and who doesn't. I don't think Seattle's actually good enough to sneak into the playoffs. So from the Pacific, I mean, it's going to be the Ducks, it's going to be Vegas, and it's probably going to be a rock fight between one of these two. Actually, I think Edmonton probably makes it in. Um, hmm. But as far as over here, I don't think Minnesota continues to be like one of those teams. I mean, they've played really good hockey as of late. I know they won 5-0 not that long ago, but still insane. Oh yeah. Aaron Gordon out 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring? No. No way. Tell me that's not true. Oh no, that's bad. That's bad. Yeah, but either way, I'm out of thoughts when it's come to football. So once again, please, please, please do me a huge favor and check out this video because I think it'll help the algorithm a lot if people watch that one. And yeah, peace out, David. Always love interacting with you guys in the chat. Roan, Cobra, Cool Billy, you guys have been awesome. Mark, was in here earlier too. Logan, Hydramo, and then even this troll who pops in every night, and one who keeps saying that we need to trade Bo Nix. The guy who keeps saying we need to trade Bo Nix. I love you because you comment every night and you give me engagement even after I ban your accounts from commenting. Either way, peace out, guys. Y'all have an amazing rest of your night.